All right, folks, what we got to do today is some house cleaning. There's a whole lot of questions people ask, and as you noticed over the last couple years, whatever it's been, the stuff we sell in our catalog page or whatever you call it, I don't say much about it. You can pretty much see it when I'm using it, and I don't try to convince anybody anything. I'm not Billy Graham. We just have things for working people and regular people at a good price. So anyway, I've had a lot of questions pertaining to the saddle. Why, what for, and everything else. So I'm going to go over it real quick. And it took me a while to get this design that I wanted. And then we'll start with the horn. And it's a Guadalajara horn is what they call it. Probably 5 inches across, 2.5 inches high. But the thing you want to know about it is I made sure that it dropped in the back as opposed to the front. There for a while everybody bought those post horns, and what they did was pop their dallies off and beat their hand to death right here. So it's got just the right angle that your arm is when you're dallying, so it allows you to drop this part of your hand. And as you can tell, I try to dally on the bottom of my horn, and it doesn't take as much hit on a horse. So with that in mind, the reason why the back cinch is on the saddle is because I don't care who you are, when you dally, it pulls down here, and that drives the back of the saddle up. Okay, it pushes into the withers, but you don't want it driving down hard, so you put the back cinch on, get them good about a back cinch, and it saves this. Now, if you can't slide rope, none of this is relevant about this saddle. If you rope on rubber, then it's a whole different world. It's called rodeoing, and it's just different. And I'm talking about slick horn, wade tree. Now, the tree is a wade tree. That's all I can tell you. People ask about degrees, and I don't know anything about degrees. All I know is that this is the tree we use, and it's the same tree. The only difference is the length of the seat. But with the gullet like it is, I do know that it'll ride anything. We've already been over that because of pads. I've never sored a horse.
Do you want to add?
So Deb, because a lot of people asked her, she measured between here and here, rosette to rosette, which is that, and she said it's 8 inches. So if that helps you, that's what Deb measured. Okay, breast collar, I like my D's up high. I use a 3-piece breast collar on a ring, and that way it'll fit any horse because it just naturally lays above the shoulder. And I keep them where I can put my fist in it. I don't like it real loose because, once again, if you slide rope, you'll know why I do that. Now the rigging, and it's a rough out because it's cheaper. And I like rough out saddles. Now when I get them, I grease them up, and I usually ride them unless I got too many. And we use Obanoffs is the name of the stuff we put on them. And then I put olive oil later on underneath on the smooth part. But what you got to know, it depends on where you live. As you know, we don't have any moisture out here, as in humidity or anything. So you may have to use something different in your country. The night latch, which is what it was called, I've heard it called many profane names, but when I was growing up, it was called a night latch. Okay, that for me helps me if I need to help getting on my horse, and I can tie off my get down rope in it. And then if I choose to riding a colt, I can go ahead and use it what it was designed for. But what you got to understand is that I have just enough room for my fingers to fit under. I see all kinds of these that are all the way out here. And if you ever ride a bucking horse holding a latch all the way out here, you're going to quit doing that as soon as you wake up, because it will beat your hand to death on the saddle. That's why you don't have any slack in there, so you can go with the horse as it bucks, which for me is like 2 jumps. Anyway, the biggest mistake I see here, these are too long. And they end up here, which means they end up in the dally, and it just goes on and on. So let's just make it easy. That's how much room you want. The rope strap is very, very, very long, because I have a 60-foot rope ariata, and I do it the old style of going around the horn and over to this buckle when I'm done with all my wraps. I get about 4 to 5 wraps on my rope, and that's something for me to grab. I can get to that a heck of a lot quicker than I can get to this. By the time I would find this and grab it, I'm gone anyway. So this is for me, it's for getting on and off and tying off my get down rope. These are metal wrapped wood stirrups. They're on here because they're cheap and they work. The stirrup guard, which I've already told you about, goes on every saddle. That's very important. It will save your life. Of course, we tie our stirrup leathers to twist them. In some saddles, by the time I get them, I can take that off and they stay twisted. It just depends on the leather. And this one, I'll cut these off after a while just to get rid of them. And the rigging is a 5/8 rigging. And for those of you that don't know, there's full double, I call it 7/8, 5/8, center fire, which you very seldom see. And the reason I want it back here and low is because with a weighted tree, what happens is this tends to wrap around a horse more than having this part up here. Like an inskirt rigging. Well, this is an inskirt rigging, but I mean a lot of them you'll see it straight across here. For example, like this, and the bar is here. Well, I like mine lower. The lower I can get it, the less hump I have in here under my leg, and it wraps around the horse more. Also, it ends up not pushing on the elbow of the horse. There's about that much distance between the right here and the elbow when the saddle's setting correctly.
Don't you think too that when you are dally on a cow, it doesn't pull as much towards the front?
Yeah, like Deb was saying, when you rope off a saddle like this and you dally, having that 5/8 rigging, it helps take some of the pressure off. The farther you go ahead, the more the back tips up. And she's dead on the money there. So I'm farther back, and that helps keep the saddle without having so much strain on it. Now the dish of the seat, this is a deeper dish than a lot of saddles. And I like the cantle. This is a 4.5 inch high. But this dip right here is where my tailbone sits. And it allows me to talk to my horse better, and it's more comfortable for me to ride. So that's the story on these. They're 15, 15.5, and 16. And I can't think of anything else. It's not like it's rocket science on saddles. You just get a good saddle and you're set up. If you want a custom-made saddle, well, that's an artisan, and that guy will fix you up the most beautiful thing you ever saw. So once again, the saddle, like everything else we sell, it's on the website. You know, what you want, saddle size and all that stuff. So everything you need to know is on the website. Now, we're kind of going over the most questions asked, and one of them was the saddle. Another one is my rope. This is a 5/16 nylon 60-footer. Comes from King Ropes in Sheridan, Wyoming. The reason I use it is because I've never liked anything else when I lived down here. And you got to know that I'm not in the loop when it comes to rope, so to speak. Now there's red, white, blue, red, pink, green, neon. I don't know anything about any of those, and I don't care to know. This 5/16 soft works for me. Now when I lived up north, Wyoming, Montana, all winter long I used a poly because you could wash them off, and this wouldn't last 2 days up there doctoring. But down here I don't really have to deal with that, so I used a poly up north. And a man just asked me about a 4 strand as opposed to 3. with the style of roping we do, a heavier rope actually works better. But I'll tell you right now, I have a 3-strand, and I use it because my shoulders don't work very good, and I can't swing a 4-strand rope all day. It's too heavy. Wham, wham. The Honda, you already know about that. They're on the, but the knot is what's important. The walker knot that they tie at King's works on their Hondas and most other Hondas, but I don't want that knot. This is the knot I use. Turk's head, I think Bob Blackwell called it. And that's a double one. It's 2 times. Well, the reason I use it because it pulls right down into the Honda, and you can probably tell I just switched ends on this rope. Now, switched ends, for you that don't know, this used to be the roping end. Well, it's ragged out now, so I switch ends, and I'll probably switch ends on this rope 3 times before it turns into a colt roping rope. Once I've wore them out, then they're really nice for roping colts. So that's the rope story. Now this is our missing link snaffle. And I got to tell you, I've been real happy because a lot of people are onto it now. And when I say the word onto it, what it means is it's a concept of release. I'll make it real short. The broken mouth snaffle is pain and release. If you pull with both hands, you shut the bit down. It collapses across the tongue and the bars. The harder you pull, the more it hurts. Okay. You can't break this one down. You got pressure and release. Horse understands it. The bend in the mouthpiece is a pre-signal. This allows plenty of room for the tongue. You can call it a giant tongue release if you want. Well, if you'll notice, a horse's tongue is a little wider than that, so this actually takes care of the whole tongue. The space between here and the ring is the pre-signal. When I pull on the bit, which you're going to see as it slides through the mouth, it's saying here it comes. That's how that works. Now the cricket, which is the unique part, if it's non-stop, that means your horse is bothered. Now when you first put it in a horse, it's always non-stop because it's a novelty. It's something new, so don't even pay any attention to that. So on older horses, after about an hour, they should quit. The cricket does several things, and the mouthpiece, we'll start with a colt. If you start a colt in this, he's going to learn to carry it, and you're always going to be pulling one hand to the other. And the contact is solid, and it means black and white. In other words, a colt, there's no doubt in his mind what it means. Pressure, he has to give to it. Release, cover some country. Now, older horses, which this is, a lot of these bits go to older horses that have been rode to death in a snaffle and they want to transition to a real bit, a western bit. And this solid mouthpiece with the cricket prepares them for putting them in a western bit because the roller or cricket's going to already be there, and it is a solid mouthpiece. So when this is over, you end up riding this bit one-handed, and that tells you you're ready to go to the western bit. When you can work a gate and work cattle and rope and do whatever you want to do. So it's made for starting colts and for older horses. Okay, now this bit is 5.5 inches wide. It's wider than most bits, but it'll fit almost any horse. If it seems like it's too wide, if you can see the bends, then it is. But if you can't, leave it alone. Just let the horse know that he's got more pre-signal. And this is on our website also. And now when it comes to something people need to know is that this mouthpiece is going to rust. That's what they do. This is sweet iron. That's what the mouthpiece is made out of. A lot of people think it's stainless because it comes so shiny, but it's not. This is sweet iron. It's going to rust. You want it to rust. Horses like the rust. Now, for those of you in the southeast or anywhere where there's moisture, what I've noticed when I was back here, especially now with the clover, these horses, they work this cricket, and all that slobber from the clover and the green grass will actually will get inside this cricket, and you won't be able to hear it that much. And that's not my point. My point is it slows it down. So if you live in the southeast where there's actually grass, which we have no idea about, when you get done, you duck it in a bucket of water and then take your hand like that and you can clean it out, then dunk it again. Then it's good to go. But if you let these gum up or rust up, then it'll get stuck. So you got to keep it free. And then there again, this is in the catalog. So, and what I'm going to do is put this on a horse and show you the difference to answer one of these questions. What do you feed your horse because they look so clean or healthy? We feed them alfalfa hay, period. 365 days a year. We have no grass. There are people that say if you feed them 365 days, you'll burn their kidneys and they'll turn into monsters. That has never happened to us. We actually ride them. Okay. Do you have horses for sale? Yes. As a matter of fact, we do sell horses. Right now it's really hard to get them because of crossing the border. But there again, if you want a horse and you get a hold of us, be very specific as to what you want. Our horses are for people that trail ride and cowboys that doctor by themselves. That's how simple this is. So if you want to get ready for the Reno Futurity, then go somewhere else. Now I want to share something with you that is from a good friend of ours, Bev, who we've known for years, and she's a real dedicated, good hand. She said, I guess I've missed it all these years that I've ridden with Pat, that would be. It might take a good video chapter. Okay, the way she writes, what is it using the Hackamore that prepares an equine for the spade, besides not having a bit in their mouth? So knowing Bev, what that means to me is that she's saying, how can you prepare a horse for a spade when there's nothing in their mouth? And a lot of people, which is just fine, they use a snaffle bit to prepare a horse for a spade. That's part of the progression. I go from a Hackamore, and I go through the series of sizes, and then I hang the spade on them and let them carry it. But what I really want to explain to Bev is I'm going to show you with a horse. And I'll show you why I prefer the Hackamore over the snaffle bit. Now this, my friends, this what I'm talking about right now, it has to do with making a California spade bit horse. It's a tradition. As you know, that's what I pursue. I'm a student of the spade bit. So what this refers to is Hackamore to spade. Okay, now for my friend Bev, this is my colt in the Bosal, the 5/8. Alright, the reason that I ride him in a Hackamore as opposed to a snaffle is because, one, his teeth are still coming in. He's 3, so he's got teeth, he's teething. Out in the wild, you'll see a big bump here. Later on, it'll probably come out on this horse, and that's how from a distance you can tell their age. When they're 3, they get a bump under here. But what I want you to understand, the way I see it, is that when I use a Hackamore, and I'm riding a colt, I don't put my hand out here. Like a lot of people help a colt with a snaffle to lead them around a circle. I keep my hand about here. So when I pull on it, you watch, it's working on the nose. And it's working on the hide right here. So when I pull it and I bump, then the horse gives its head, I release. This is a very simple concept. The drop is the release. So every time I let go of it, and what I try to do is not let this part of the macate touch the bone. That's the lever. I don't want to go there. I only want to go here. So over time, if I ride well, that's what I'll receive. So what I want you to do is keep in mind what I just said, how I keep a smaller window with my hands, and there's a lot of movement in the Hackamore itself to let the horse know what's going on. Okay, now folks, I'm still working on this question Bev asked about the difference between riding a colt and a Hackamore as opposed to a snaffle. So in the reality of the world is that guys that work on ranches, a lot of them use snaffle bits on colts, and they know they're headed for a bridle, because they have to be able to do their job, meaning things come up where they end up helping somebody rope something, and it's just one of those deals that ranches have you there to work cattle, not train your horse. That's a sorry way to say it, but it's a fact. So a lot of guys, and I did it myself included, I felt compelled that I rode a snaffle so I could be there if there's a wreck or they needed me. That's just kind of the way cowboys work. But now I've learned over the years that now what I figured out when I was by myself, I could pick my rides. And if I was just going out to look at my country, check gauge, ride fence, something non-threatening, I'd use a Hackamore. Then it got to be where I was able to not have to be in a situation where I had to help somebody. And I was in the drags or whatever, and that's when you can just use a Hackamore. So for a person that doesn't work on a ranch, you've got the perfect scenario for just using a Hackamore. Now the other reason why I don't use a snaffle bit to make a bridle horse, spade bit horse, is because I have learned that when I'm riding in a snaffle bit, it's more intrusive. And I don't mean just the fact that it's in the mouth, but the fact is when I pull on the snaffle bit, it's actually literally in the mouth of the horse. When I was pulling on the bosal, it was on the nose of the horse. So two things happen in a bosal. Over time, they naturally go into collection because you're working on this part of the nose, and it has a tendency to bring the skull back. Okay, what a horse learns in a snaffle bit is that they can hinge their jaw and just basically open their mouth if you get to pulling too hard. That can't happen in a Hackamore. They'll go through it, and that means you messed up. But myself personally, if I'm having trouble in a Hackamore and I'm around the house or whatever, the next time I ride the horse, or right then, I'll get off, put on the halter, fix the problem, leave the halter on as long as I have to, 10 minutes or 10 days, and then go back to the Hackamore. The snaffle bit, the way it works, is I believe that the percentage of a horse's brain, as soon as you put pressure on one rein, now this is the important part, their mind focuses on their mouth because it's more invasive than the nose. So now they feel this thing in their mouth and they say, here it comes, I got to get ready. So they start to push instead of give to get ready to brace against their hand. So now their brain is on their mouth and not on my seat. That's the main reason why I have learned that I do better with just a Hackamore. It takes time, and you got to pick your rides. Well, okay. That's the point. That's my point. Now this is my snaffle, but if you take a snaffle traditional, we'll call it, that breaks in the middle, they'll lose their mind. Their mind will focus on their mouth. That's my answer to Bev. Now I want you to get in front, Deb, and show this pre-signal on this bit while I got it here. You can see the distance from the side of the mouth to the ring. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, now when I pull the off rein, for those of you that don't know, this is how a snaffle works. When you pull on it, it slides through their mouth and brings the ring up against it. That's a pre-signal. That's how much room they have before the ring actually hits. So that's one reason I like it, is because it's got this much play in it. That's why it's a pre-signal.
That horse is onto it. He doesn't let it slide all the way through.
Yeah, he doesn't. This is Gallo. He's pretty much... Gallo is a nice little horse. And he gets it. He understands, here it comes. He knows what that means, so he gives his head. But he's rode in a, he's in a western bit now. He's been 1,000,000 miles. I just wanted to show you how this actually works. So, Bev, I hope that answers it for you. Okay. Now, I'm going to address something because we got the bits out. And this is a correction bit. I get a rash just holding it. But I wanted to show you what I believe is the reality about these bits. Now, in the last 20 years, we're into the second generation, I think, of people riding with these. And the kids today You know how them kids are. They honestly believe that you ride two-handed. That's how you ride a horse. And this bit is what they use to do it. So I'm going to show you in a minute why I don't like them. But this is a correction bit. And the best thing about it was the man that came up with the name correction. Because psychologically it meant it would correct all your problems. And all it did was cause problems, so you just had to go buy a tie-down. So I'm guessing he made tie-downs also. All right. Okay. All right, folks. This is the correction bit. Now, you know I do one-day clinics, and I travel. I just got back from making a circle to North Carolina. In almost every clinic, I teach people that have never been to my clinic before. I only have 5 people in it, and I'll bet you 2 or 3 have a correction bit of some kind that they bring. The people that, and they ride two-handed. And I've watched this for years. And they try to ride one-handed because I'm there and this and that. But the fact is, when things fall apart and their horse won't turn, they reach down and grab it with the other hand. I've also watched this in the Slicer. I've watched it in Western bits. Well, that's not how you ride a horse. It's wrong. So now the main number one reason I want to show you what happens, because I've watched this. Somebody gets in trouble and their horse spooks. And they're riding two-handed in this bit. Okay? So what happens is the horse spooks to the right. Well, the human, the first thing they do is pull. So when they pull, now they need to pull the head back around. So they reach down and they pull like this. Now the harder they pull, which this horse is turning its head just fine, but what I really want you to notice is right here. This is the main reason I don't like these, because you can slap around with 2 hands and gee and haw and get them to turn left and right. But when things fall apart and the human gets scared and they pull on this bit, what it does is it drives that ring into that molar. The molar is right there. Okay, now especially horses that are 9 or 10 and they've never been floated, those are really, really sharp edges on their molars. So when you pull and you drive that ring into that molar, that horse throws his head in the air. Now you try to bend him and his head's upside down. So the human starts saying words and they panic. And that's what happens. They just pull really hard on this bit with one hand because they're riding two-handed. Heaven forbid they just stop, and they always have a chain curb strap, which I got to tell you, when the wreck is on, it's irrelevant, because when you pull on this bit, it goes completely upside down on one side, and all you're doing is right here on this left side is you're driving that into the jaw again. It gets caught on there. So now you've got this big, now you've got their pulling, and now you reach out again and you drive it into the nasal. So everybody thinks it's the mouth is the worst part, which it is. This ring right here is where all the trouble starts that I watch people throwing their heads. That's why I don't like correction bits. Now the mouthpiece. The mouthpiece, if you look at them on the wall in the feed store, there's like 100. And the guy that runs the feed store, you go ask him, which always makes me laugh, because 9 out of 10 times he doesn't even own a horse. But anyway, now we have the mouthpiece. And the mouthpiece on this particular one has a roller. Okay. Okay, and this, when you pull that one like I told you, and you're pulling on that rein, it's collapsing this across the tongue, because the other side's being pulled into the skull. So now it finally makes it all the way to here on the bar. And then what the problem I have besides that is that there's no black and white in this bit. Everything is gray. because you move your hands. Every human moves their hands if they don't ride well. And the whole time you're moving your hands, you're moving something on this bit. So that's what I call busy. So this horse, it's not a signal. It's not even a lever. What it is a wonder. I wonder what in the hell this guy wants. Because he's pulling this bit and it's going 7 different ways and I don't know how to react, so I'll just go through it. So there you go. That's the correction bit. It's time to correct the correction bit. So my friends, it's just part of the deal, and I understand that people are curious, and they do ask us all these questions. That's why we went over this today, so I hope I didn't put you to sleep. But, you know, we get a lot of emails, and I'm not whining. I love to get them because it's interesting to me. But if you do send an email, something personal I've got to tell you is that you have to tell me where you live. I'm not going to come and hit your door. The reason I want to know where you live is because a lot of time that dictates my answer. If you're doctoring scours at 0 degrees in Montana on the feed ground, it's a little different than you send me a letter from Ocala, Florida. The answer is going to be different, I'll guarantee you. So please tell me where you're from. And not to mention the cowboy world, everybody knows somebody, and I'll bet you $10 we know somebody from that same country. But anyway, that's it. Thank you. Okay, folks. Something I want to share with you, it's kind of funny to me, is that if you look at this horse, there's these, they look like dapples, which they are. That's the color of his hair. And a veterinarian told the lady that looked at this horse that those were hives, but they're not hives. This horse doesn't have hives. So it kind of tickles me. And we're wishing good luck to our friend Mare. She's coming out from Vermont. She's going to be part of the crew. You'll get to meet her later. Really solid, good person. And when I messed up my hip, I didn't get to have the clinic at CC's, so I'm really sorry about that. And Sam, I just wanted to tell you I was really looking forward to riding with you. But it ain't over yet, so we'll get to do it. And for you folks that were in the clinic there at CC's, I'm sorry, but I'll catch up with you somewhere down the trail. Adios.